Hello, this is Zach, and I'm going to show you how to use the new release features in the Takeoff program. What I have open right now is the Matilda job, and you'll notice that the Takeoff program has a bunch of stuff at the top to give you information on um, how you are currently filtering the job and exactly what you're including with your releases. You'll notice that there is a release name here. Right now it's set to last UPD, and my area and filter are X and star respectively, kind of indicating that's sort of the normal stage that it would be in if you just ran UPD. And just for a little background on this job, we go into elevation info. This job has three buildings. There's a B, C, and D building. The field use elevations are labeled starting with the building letter, F, meaning field use, and then the elevation number. So all the B elevations for field use are BF, C elevations are CF, D elevations are DF. The units are similar. The units for building B are just simply U. For building C, it's UC. And for building D, it's UD. Each unit has been tagged to a release indicating which building it's on, which week we're going to be producing that unit, and which day of the week we'll be producing that unit. So the first letter here under location is the building, second letter is the week, or the second number is the week, and the final number is the day of the week. So this unit, there's two of them, and they're produced on the first week, third day of building D production. So the way we want to release this job is the metal, at least, will be by building, by week, by day. So there's going to be many, many releases on this job. Glass is by building by week, not by day. And I'll show you how to set that up. So right now, you'll notice that there is a group column here. It's been renamed. This used to be called release, but now it's called group. And now you assign your elevations or units to a group. So it looks like this was the last unit that was UPD'd. UC0 or UC10 is the unit. This typical group column is new. So if you're familiar with the Takeoff program and running UPD, you know that this formerly called release column would always get changed because this X would get moved around to whatever you UPD'd, and it would be replaced by ones when you UPD something else, and the settings of this this column were always in flux as you were working on the job. This new typical group column, however, doesn't ever change. Once you've set it, the program won't change it. And when you choose a release, all of the values in this column are copied into this column, replacing any sort of changes that UPD might have made while you were working on the job. So if you're going to start dividing up your job, at least your field use elevations, you'll want to set that up here under typical group. By default, all units are under typical group unit, and you'll see why that is shortly. For your field use, it's all set to 1, but you can change that. And for this, since I want to split up the field use by building, and just by building, not by week or anything like that, I want to divide my field use elevations into two different typical groups. I'll call building B E for ease, and I will set all of these to B. And we're going to use a little video editing, so you don't have to watch me do that. For C, I'll set the group to C, and for D, I'll set it to D, so that I can filter them out later. So I've gone ahead and labeled under typical group buildings B, C, and D. That will allow me to group them later. This one's left as one because it's a mock-up. We'll just ignore that. All the units, however, I'm just leaving as the default unit, and typically you won't need to change that. So now that I've got this set up, I'm ready to set up some of my releases. So this works off of what you're used to using with the area and the location filter. So because of what I did with the field use, I'm going to set up a few areas on the building. So right now I have some typical ones. The all area reflects groups 1, 2, and 3. The units area, this comes in by default. It consists of the group unit, which should only be my units. I'm going to add some for building B and D. So one of my areas I'm going to call B, and I should call it building B field use because this will only be the field. And I will pull only the elevations that are tagged as B, which I did on the previous page. This. So I've added a few areas here, which will take my groups of elevations and bring them together. So there's really only two main filtering mechanisms that you need to use in the Takeoff program, and it's always going to be the combination of an area and a filter, or a location filter. So with the areas, that is typically used to just filter out elevations wholesale. So if I wanted all of the building B field use, I could choose my area, building B field use, and set my location filter to star, and I would get everything from my building B. Everything in my elevation info that I've listed as group B would be included. Same for building C, same for building D. That's how field use should be filtered. Location filter always star, and you just pull out elevations as you need. Now for units, it gets a little more complicated. We'll do that in a second. So to start with, I want to make my release for building B. So I'm going to change my area filter here. Go to building B field use, and I want my location filter to be star. So to create the release, all I have to do is go up here to release and type in the name for this. So it's actually, I'm going to end up naming it the same thing. I'm going to call it building B field use. Okay. Now whatever you type in here as the release, once you click off or you hit enter on the keyboard, it'll tell you this release doesn't exist. You want to create a new release called building B field use with the current filter settings. Yes, I do. And now you'll notice that now up here at the top where it normally was your job name, it's now called Matilda Building B Field Use, which will show up on all your outputs when you choose this release. This release is also saved here, so if I want to go to it at any time, I can just select it in this drop down, and I can even see what kind of filtering it uses. This is Building B Field Use, star. So another way to make a release, other than just switching it here, is when you bring this drop down, there's a button that appears here. It's kind of ghosted. If I click on that, it brings up a table, which allows me to make a bunch of releases. So I'm going to make a few of these now. Building C, and we'll use the filter, the area building C, and star for the location. Same for this one. Now I have set up my releases for the field use parts of this job. And if I want to switch to any one of these, I can do that just with this drop down. It updates my job name for me, which appears on all my outputs. And also it updates the quantities here so I can see that building C has 30 elevations and 57 field use lights. Building B, 37 elevations, 57 lights. and all I had to do is switch between these. If I ever want to go back to my last UPD, there's a release that's automatically created called last UPD. So if I click on that, it sets it back to X and star. Probably wondering, how is it change? How is it affecting my elevation info? How are the group numbers behaving? So right now I'm set to last UPD. If I open up my elevation info, you'll notice that it switched this group back to X because that was the last UPD I did, UC10. If I switch to one of these other releases, say building C field use, go back to elevation info, and see that it's copied. Like I said, whenever you pick a release, it copies everything in this column and puts it over here. So scrolling down, see that all of those are set to unit. All the units are set to unit. Building D is set to D, C is set to C, and that unit that I had that was previously set to X has already changed back to its typical group. You see 10 here, it's set to unit again. So I could switch back and forth between releases, and I won't lose either my settings for the typical releases or the typical groups. I won't lose my settings caused by UPD. So let's do a unit release. For a unit release, you should almost always set your area to units, and that will just filter out all the units, and all the field use stuff will not be included. And then for my location filter, I want to choose my my release names, my unit release names. So if you'll notice, when you're tagging a unit key, it asks you what the elevation is. Now with the Takeoff program, it'll list the unit release. Unit release is what's listed before the slash on each of these locations so that you can get a unit quantity. So, and as I showed before, it was building letter, week number, and day number in that order. So if I wanted all the units for building D, week 1, type that out here. I want D1 star. That will grab all the units that are tagged on building B for the first week, and it doesn't care what day it is. I'll create this as the release building. It's 1. Yes, I want to create this. Now I have a nice handy release that I can go back to. I wanted to do a week 2. Just replace the 1 with a 2. Add that in. And again, I can use this button here to make a bunch of these at a time. Finish building E by week. These will have to be units, star, 4 weeks on building. So if I wanted to go by day, if I wanted some releases by day, add those in here as well. Units, week 1, day 1. In the same filter, I'll do the units, only units, and I want D11 star. And you would continue this to set up all the releases for your job. Now when I go back here, I have all of them listed, and I could switch between them at will. It automatically changes the name of my project, all of my outputs, which show this name, so I don't have to keep renaming the files. Also, say I was outputting a glass form, see here that the default name is now glass order Matilda building D units week 2, and then it gives the date as the default name.